All right. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Monterey Bay Aquarium live here on Twitch. My name is Emily. I am one of two Emilys that's going to be here on stream today. I'm the one from the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Hey, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for tuning in with us. All right. Looks like Twitch chat can hear us. This is perfect. Once again, my name's Emily. I am part of the social media team here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium, along with my coworker, my friend, my colleague, Patrick, who is across the bay in his house right now. Hey, Patrick, how's it going?
Hey, it's going great. Oh, I made it to friend and colleague. Nice, perfect. I'm glad to be on the list. Hey, everybody. Hi, Twitch chat. My name's Patrick. I will be the one over on the left side there with that fantastic fish shirt that Emily just gave me today. Thank you, Emily, for the fish shirt.
You're so
I am
welcome.
Rick Etz of Punnery Row, joining Monterey on the social media team. But as you can see, we are not currently on the Monterey Bay Island, Emily.
No.
We are somewhere very, very special.
We have a very, very special field trip that we took today
Yes.
to our friend Emily's Island, Emily Graslie from the Field Museum. Hey, Emily.
Hi, welcome to my island. You all the streamers out there, I'll have you know I did nothing else this weekend except for prepare for everybody to see my island. So I hope it lives up to your expectations. But yeah, we're going to talk about pollinators today with our other special guest.
Yes, we also have a very special guest joining us. You might notice there are 4 of us on Kittyvile Island right now, Emily's Island, which is a delightful name. Let's just start with that. But very special guest. We've got Dr. Ryan Gott joining us this afternoon. Ryan, do you want to introduce yourself? Do you want to say hello?
Hi, everybody. Like you said, my name is Ryan. You don't need to call me Dr. Ryan or Dr. Gott or anything like that. I am an entomologist. I work in integrated pest management and plant health care, taking care of plants, protecting them from all kinds of different things that want to attack them. And overall, just an enthusiast about all insects and other arthropods and nature and plants and everything. So I am super excited to be here today and try to spread some love about the arthropods that Blathers seems to disdain so heartily.
Right. Yeah, we actually, something we need to be very careful about is that you don't run into Blathers directly or like matter and antimatter. You might cancel each other out there because your love of bugs is just extraordinary, right? You love those critters that maybe this game doesn't quite teach you how to love in the way that they really should.
Yeah, I think he's I guess he would be my arch nemesis. He's my exact but I love him.
So
don't
awesome.
worry.
Yes. Well, we've already caught our very first pollinator of the day. Emily was over there already doing some collecting while we were over here blathering on. We've got this awesome butterfly. Yay!
yeah. So I think there we go. So I think we should go on a little tour, and we can go to my big flower field, because believe it or not, this is nothing compared to my big flower field, and see what kind of insects we have over there.
That sounds
Let's
like
do it.
an awesome plan.
Definitely.
All right, Emily, lead the way.
Let's go. And I will ask you, please, no running through the flowers.
I'm sorry.
Patrick.
My reputation
Patrick.
precedes me. Oh my God, I almost ran through some. I'm sorry.
So here, right on a quick little
gosh.
jaunt away from the museum.
Oh
we
my
have
God.
Oh
Emily,
my
Emily,
What?
this is
flower
What?
this is amazing.
Oh.
This is a
Wow,
pollinator
okay.
paradise. Oh my
Okay.
God.
Yeah. So this is a really great place to find bugs in the game. It turns out if you cover an entire swath of your island in nothing but flowers.
Oh, good Lord! I just noticed the
you
second
can
level.
attract a lot of great insects. Yeah, and that's where I'm breeding my tulips on the second
Oh
level.
my
Wow.
gosh.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
Twitch chat is heavily impressed with your gardening skills there, Emily.
Thank
My
you.
goodness.
Thank you. Yay.
Very
And
impressive.
actually this came to be because I was planning a more deliberate gardens like elsewhere on the island, and these were the overflow, like the extra flowers that I ended up
Wow.
accumulating. So anyway, they all ended up here.
Oh
Yeah,
my gosh.
That's so cool.
It just
This
makes
That's
me happy.
amazing. And so one aspect of the flowers in this game that, besides being absolutely beautiful, everyone's commenting on how pretty they are. Something that I know, Emily Simpson, you were very
Yes.
excited about this
Oh my
discovery.
gosh.
Is that the game designers did a really good job of fitting in some evolution here and some genetics into the flowers. Can you describe that to the audience very quickly who might not know just the level of detail that we've got going on? Because we've got this field of flowers. You can see all these different flowers here, but some details hidden in there for the science nerd at heart, right?
Yeah, so this is something that I am still. Oh no, I missed the butterfly. That's okay. Ryan's got it. The
like the pro that
professional
he is.
got
Look
it.
at
Don't
him.
worry, you're an entomologist. with
Nice.
you.
Oh, Emily Graslie just shoved me
Don't
onto
worry.
the beach. That's
Don't
fine.
worry.
I'm sorry.
No, I understand. I should be fishing, but
No.
okay.
Okay. So this is something
yes.
that I am still freaking out about since I found out about it last week. So the flowers in the game, if any of you have been trying to, like Emily has here, I know that you said that you were working on crossbreeding those flowers up on the second level, Emily. So I'm gonna head up there real quick.
Yeah, please do.
Yeah. Oh my
And I left
gosh.
some examples in place so you can show off what we're talking about here.
Yeah. Oh my, this is perfect. This is the perfect spot right here. So for those of you who've been trying to breed those rare flowers in the game, and may have gotten frustrated with it because you'll plant things like, oh, these beautiful white tulips and red tulips next to each other, hoping to get pink tulips, and then the next day you go and you look and there's just more white tulips or more red tulips there. There's a reason for that, and it's because the programmers of Animal Crossing actually programmed genetics into the flowers to have dominant and recessive traits. And so if you have flowers that are right next to each other, say this white tulip and this red tulip right next to each other, the white tulip genes looks like they are dominant in this set of tulips right here, because as they are breeding, they are just producing more white tulips, versus these white tulips and these red tulips together must have recessive genes. So as they breed together, they make those pink tulips. So it's basically Mendelian genetics happening in game to determine whether or not you're going to get certain crossbred colors in these flowers. And so Emily, as you're trying to make these pink tulips, you definitely want to use this set of parents right here, because they're going to be more likely to produce those pink tulips than these two sets of parent flowers right here, which are just going to give you those dominant genes instead.
I didn't realize that it actually varied based on the individual plants, because I've just been, as you can see, kind of hoarding all sorts of flowers and planting
I
them
know
based on color.
It's insane. I totally changed the way that I was trying to plan my gardens and stuff to make more of those those rare colors. And so I had a whole bunch of white windflowers that I had planted all over the front of Monterey Bay Island, and half of them were producing the beautiful blue windflowers, but the other ones were just producing white windflowers over and over and over again. But after a while, and after I learned this, I figured out, it's because those white windflowers have all dominant genes. These ones have a dominant and a recessive gene. So if I breed those two together, there's a chance that they're going to make those blue windflowers, versus these ones, they're always going to give me the white flowers. And if you can't tell from my excitement,
that's so great.
I'm just
So
totally
cool.
nerding out over it right now. So yeah,
That is amazing.
each of your flowers that you have, they're going to have their own genetics in game. What? That's so awesome.
Yay!
That's
Whoa.
amazing. Emily Simpson, are you trying to say that with these tulips here, everyone gets to kind of pick their ingredients and make up their own dish of flowers as they wanted to? So basically, with these tulips, you can get a Mendelian genetics chef's kiss. Would that be?
That was a long walk to a
It was a
bad
long walk.
pun.
Long walk through the park, but we made it.
No.
That's awesome, Emily. Wow, so cool. I didn't realize any of that.
It's and it took a whole bunch of people who were playtesting this game and a whole bunch of gamers online who were trying to figure this out to realize that that's what the programmers did, is that they gave their tulips, they gave their flowers, they gave every single species in here their own genetics. And so it's
amazing.
Just so cool, the little things that are hidden in this game, from both the fauna that we've been talking about with all the animals, but then the flora in here is just so detailed as well, and it's just the coolest.
That's
okay.
That's amazing.
I'm
Wow.
gonna take a
Yeah.
breath right now from my complete nerd out session right there.
That's
I
so
want
great.
to show you another thing that I've grown on my island.
Oh,
Okay.
You can come this way. Yeah, come on back.
The little secret
Go
path here.
back
Ooh, a
to
little
that
orchard
little
back
secret
here.
path. We're going to go up there under the second level, but there's a staircase. Ramp. I'm curious, Ryan, how I ended up with this gem here. Like,
yeah, go for it, Ryan. How do you explain
Yeah.
what's happening
How do
here?
I grow one
between
of
growing a
those
money
in real
tree.
life? Yeah.
Yeah, horticulturally, how do you explain a literal money tree, money growing on trees?
Yeah. Some kind of alchemist came by and was just like, you know what? These acorns could really use some sprucing up.
Now, Emily,
I also love that this is a hack, too.
oh yeah, definitely. So in case, for those of you
Yeah.
who want some pro gamer tips from Emily's over here, Emily, do you want to talk about the kind of life hacks around growing money trees?
Growing a money tree. I just learned this the other day. If you find a glowing spot on your island and dig it up and dig up a bag of money, before you close it up again, put the money back into the hole, or you can put more money in.
Mhm.
Some people say that it'll multiply, and then when it grows, you can get some bags of money on your tree, which is kind of fun. It's not as interesting to me as like the plant genetics, to be honest.
No,
Yeah.
these are just the pro gamer tips. Also, so you can plant as many coins as you want in your tree. If you plant between 1 and 9,000 coins in that spot,
10,000.
well, it's like just underneath it, then there's a chance that you're going to get somewhere between the 1 and 10. But if you plant 10, you're always going to get 10 times 3. It's going to multiply that 10.
Yeah.
Yeah. You
That's
can also
amazing.
plant more than that. You can plant like 99,000 in the tree. But there's an algorithm that they use that determines whether or not you're going to get just 30,000 back or 99,000 3 times back. So your safest bet is to just bury the 10,000 every time. Also, after you bury it, you can dig the tree up. So if it spawns in a really weird place on your island and you're like, well, that's inconvenient, dig up the money, bury the money, and then once you have your little baby tree there, just dig it up and you can replant that tree wherever you want. Pro
That's
tips.
amazing. I've discovered my own pro gamer move. Emily Simpson, watch this. Hardcore parkour. Hardcore parkour. I had no idea you could do that, and I just figured that out. So there you go. That's the kind of gameplay you can expect from a bunch of science folks here on Animal Crossing. So we got Mendelian genetics. We've got how to get returns on investment, planting your money.
Look at
If
this
you've heard of
beautiful
people putting cash under the mattress, planting gold, might grow a gold tree. I'm way out of my expertise level there. And now we find ourselves in an orchard. And I know that this was something that Emily Graslie, you really wanted to give a huge shout out to the little creepy crawlies that make our food possible. So not only do we have these beautiful little flowers, but all of these fruits here in the trees. Can we get some shout outs to those pollinators? Maybe some explanation of what a pollinator is.
Yeah, I'll leave this up to Ryan to talk about, because I'm really interested to know if this is a good place. Like, Ryan, how have I done in terms of trying to find a balance between the biodiversity of my island and also cultivating food that I need to eat, but mostly to get bells for more expansions on my island? How have I done here? is this island like actually? How am I doing biodiversity support wise here? Is this good for the pollinators?
Yeah, I think so far it's looking pretty great because, like you said, you have to have a balance between, what was already present on the island and then what you need to do or alter to support yourself without, raising the island to the ground to do whatever you want to do. And so, first I want to ask, what flower did you start with on your island?
Oh, tulips.
Tulips.
So,
Okay, so
yeah. Tulips.
yeah, so that's great because you still have tons and tons of tulips around. So that was your native flower. So things that were living here and were already relying on those tulips still had those tulips around, in addition to all these other great flowers that they can visit if they want to. And those things we're talking about are, of course, those pollinators that you mentioned, which a pollinator is really just anything that is going to transfer pollen from one flower to another so that the flowers can reproduce, which means they're going to produce seeds, usually in fruits like we see in these orange trees and pear trees and all these things you have around here. And so it's that they're really important to that physical transfer of pollen for a lot of those things that set the fruit that we eat. There's, of course, things that are pollinated by wind and some plants that are pollinated by in the water for some aquatic plants.
Oh wow!
Like some grains that we eat and things like that. But most often we think about these fruits that we like to eat, or other tomatoes, squash, all those kinds of things that rely on pollinators.
Okay, so someone in the chat just told us that if you look closely at the bees in this game, you can actually see pollen stuck to their fuzzy little legs.
What?
So now I'm on a hunt
Yeah.
for a bee.
Yes,
No
you
way.
can. You
Oh,
can
boy.
see they have a full bee basket on each of their legs. So bees,
Oh my god.
honeybees,
Can we
when they go out on a foraging trip, they have pretty good fidelity that they're going to keep visiting the same kind of flower and packing in the same kind of pollen. And so they pack it all into that little divot in their leg that has these hairs around it to kind of hold it all on, and then carry that back in and kick it off into a cell when they're back in their hive. And so, honeybees are here. So they were here when you got here. So they would seem to be native to your island. There's probably lots of other native bees and flies and beetles and moths and butterflies. Maybe even you have some pollinating birds or bats or pollinating mice and lizards, snails, slugs. All of those things are potential pollinators for different kinds of plants.
Whoa. Did you
Slugs,
just say
really?
pollinating snails and slugs?
Yeah, there
What?
are some
That's my jam.
Yeah, there are some species of like ginger that grow their flowers on the ground basically. So the
What?
slugs and snails can just crawl right inside.
What?
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And then the slugs crawl off and go and pollinate elsewhere. They
Yeah.
crawl into another. Oh my goodness, that is so
And
cool.
they're
What?
covered in
So
that
amazing.
that mucus, so they're just like perfect for picking up pollen and dragging
Yeah.
it off somewhere else.
Oh yes, thank you,
Oh my
Ryan.
God.
Oh, they
That's
made.
amazing.
Pollinating
They made-
mollusks.
I
Oh, that's
didn't
going to be the
know.
name
I
of a
know that
band. Called it Pollinating
That-
Mollusks.
Pollinating mollusks. Oh my goodness. I knew that there was a reason that mollusks were the first animal that you saw in this game on the shore, and confirmed mollusks do everything. That's amazing, Ryan. I had no idea about that. Wow.
That is amazing.
Also,
And
can we go back and talk about
someone in
how?
the chat,
Oh,
I was
Go
gonna
f-
say, someone in the chat earlier asked if you could plant a clam tree, and I was thinking how much better that would be than a money tree, because like I want endless clams.
Yeah.
yes,
Clams are the best.
absolutely.
And clams can also be used as currency in slang too. So you can grow money on trees, and you got a whole bunch of clams. So
There you go.
right. So
Yeah.
it already works out.
Yeah.
You get a delicious dinner, and the
That's
clams
That's amazing.
as an allowance. That's amazing. Ryan, just a quick follow-up question. What is the most bizarre pollinator that most people would not expect? So already I got snails and slugs, and that's making me think that maybe the slugs that eat mushrooms are also helping spread spores around, which I hadn't really thought about before. I don't know if you know about that, but what is your favorite, least expected pollinator out there?
Least expected pollinator. I mean, there's probably so many, and every entomologist you ask will think of a different crazy example. But I guess I might go with not like a transfer of gametes you would normally think of, but there are little mosses and other bryophytes, those like really basal type plants that rely on being sort of in a watery environment and having terrestrial, isopods like our pill bugs and things crawl across them to transfer pollen within that like wet environment, because they're still really connected to water, like the ancestors of all plants were. And so are the terrestrial isopods. They still have gills. They need to be around water to breathe. And so they help fertilize between those mosses.
That is amazing.
That's
Thank you,
awesome.
Ryan.
So cool.
Wow. So cool.
Can we talk about for a second how they're called bee baskets? Because that's the cutest thing.
Yeah.
You said it, Ryan, and you just kept on going, and that's all my brain focused on was the fact that they're called bee baskets on their little legs.
Yeah, that's
But
amazing.
if I said bee basket, I misspoke, because they are pollen baskets.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, either way, it's pretty amazing.
They're bringing their reusable totes wherever they go to go hang around. I mean, I know a lot
sustainable.
Yeah, a lot of the food that I eat goes straight to my legs too, so I totally understand where the bees are coming from there.
Ooh.
Well, this is really, really amazing. There was a question in chat, and I just had a tragedy in trying to water some of your flowers here, Emily Graslie. My water can broke, and so the question in chat related to Animal Crossing: how many water cans do you go through a day, and are you just crafting water cans constantly?
I just bulk make them.
Okay.
I have to go out and get all the supplies at once, and then just like stock up, and then I put them into my little supply nook over here outside of my house with my lawnmower. And then see, this is where my house is. Ooh, and I have a ladybug.
That's awesome.
There it is.
Ryan, I had a question real quick. Just I know some folks were really interested in what you're talking about with bees. There's a lot of really cool stories that come from the land of bees. Many different documentaries and articles and fun little facts about bees. Can you tell us a little bit about? You were saying that bees, many of them will kind of know a patch or be very, very adept at finding their same patch of flowers again. Can you describe to the people, because it's really pretty interesting, how do bees know their way around? Because you see them buzzing, you're like, oh, there goes a bee, but like they actually are amazing animals that know precisely where they're going, and they can tell their friends where to go find food too. Can you tell us a little bit about that bees that you were mentioning there?
Yeah, so when you're being, to be very specific, when we're talking about honeybees,
yes.
Apis mellifera, they go out scouting for plants to visit, and they are able to visit the plant they want, collect what they want to fill up on. They fill their honey stomach with nectar to take back, and pack their pollen baskets full of pollen to get all those proteins and lipids, and then when they fly back, they can hone back to their hive. They can track the basic sort of gist of distance and angle from the hive that they flew to visit that really good resource patch, based on things like the position of the sun in the sky, sort of the angle from ground to the sun, and when they get back to the hive, bees do that little waggle dance where they go in circles and make little zigzag patterns. And how many zigzags, if I get this right, I'm not a beekeeper. You'll forgive me if I don't get this totally right. But the number of waggles they do tells you sort of the general distance to go. And then when they cross their pattern, I think the angle they move is sort of the angle at which to fly at. So there's all those kinds of things they do with their dance based on the angle of the sun and those factors.
That's so cool. Hey, everyone, let's see if we can do a waggle dance all together here. Hold on. Let's find.
Oh yeah,
okay,
we can mimic one.
1, 2, 3, waggle dance. Oh yeah. The flowers are over here. They're this way.
It'll be like a circle, and
Come
then they'll
this way.
waggle down, and then they'll go this way, and then they'll waggle down. Then they'll go up the other way, waggle down, then
Waggle down.
over, waggle
Wow.
down.
Oh
That's
my
amazing.
God.
Waggling.
So if you were wondering, you know, we're living in a world filled with TikTok dances going viral. Dancing has been a critical component of society for a very long time. It can really help you find where the flowers are, or as I understand it on TikTok, where to get that bread. But in any case, those bees there, they have that dancing, that democracy, sort of letting people know, hey, go over here, find some pollen, help the colony out. Really amazing stuff, Ryan. Thank you so much.
Yeah, definitely. And of course, there's, you know, most of our bee species are solitary bees, and they do the same kind of awesome, you know, honing in and back to where they live. And they're collecting all on their own, you know, provisioning the little cells they're building for their offspring. So they're, you know, they, even though they aren't part of a hive and they don't have anything to tell other bees, they're able to go back and find where they were living over and over again, and really take care of themselves. You know, they're all of our other non-social bees are our true, you know, independent ladies out there.
Oh, interesting. Very cool. So those would be the Beyonces. Sorry.
The Beyonces,
Right?
Beyonce's, yes.
Sorry, everyone. Yeah, people are calling me the CEO of dad jokes. That's CEOSEA. Thank you very much for the chat over there. Spell it
love
right.
it.
Spell it right. Well, that is
I love it.
awesome stuff. Look at that turtle. Emily discovered a turtle.
I know.
I did.
He's
Although
my,
I lost
guard
you in the
turtle.
process, but I found your snapping turtle.
Oh,
That-
there you go. Oh, and you found my other windflower garden. So yeah, there's flowers all over the
So
island.
nice.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
these cross-pollinated. I didn't even know.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I think I got my
Yay!
pink one.
You got the
finally.
pink
Pink or purple?
ones.
Yeah, pink.
Nice. So
Oh,
again,
two people can't sit on the bench.
I think you
folks,
can.
if-
You just have to put your net away first.
if you are just tuning
Come
in,
join
everybody,
me.
welcome everyone to this Monterey Bay Aquarium live stream here on Twitch. We
There
are
we go.
live right now on Kittyvile Island, which is Emily Graslie of the Field Museum, Chief Curiosity Correspondent for the Field Museum. We are visiting her island right now. I'm the one with the rain hat spinning around in the flowers. We've got Emily
You're hidden
Simpson
by the
in the
map right
Cousteau
now.
hat.
There's me. I'm the one just overjoyed right now
Yeah.
on the bench.
And we're also joined, and there's Emily Graslie there in the bighorn sheep hat. And then joining us today is entomologist, professional bug enthusiast, Dr. Ryan Gott over there, hanging out, telling us a whole lot of stuff. So we've already talked about on this stream, we've already talked about Mendelian genetics. We've talked about cross breeding of these animals, talked a lot about pollinators. So thank you so much for joining us if you are here in the chat. It's so great to spend a few hours with all of you folks here. 448 people in the chat right now. Thank you so much, everyone, for being there.
Woo!
That was a
Hi, chat.
great,
It's
that was a
400
great screenshot right there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
I'm done with the word from our sponsors. Back to you, everybody.
Back to
Do we
bugs.
do we want to go to the museum and check out the bug exhibit? Because I want to know what Ryan has to say about the bugs
Yes.
in the exhibit. Let's go.
Yeah, we can.
Say hi to Hammy, my favorite island resident.
Oh my god. Well, I'm
Hammy.
gonna
Oh,
say
man.
hi to Hammy.
You have really good
Whoa,
residents.
that was a very enthusiastic hey there from Hamlet. Okay.
Hammy, my hamster, and
Oh.
the monkey's okay. The clown just moved in, and I'm not happy about it.
I just got a villager. I didn't want to move away, so I know how you feel.
Oh.
I should tell Patrick next stream that we do
Yeah.
on Monterey Bay Island. We do have a couple of new neighbors on there. One of them is meh. The other one though, you're going to be very excited about. So,
Oh, that's very
she
exciting.
moves in tomorrow.
Sweet. Emily Graslie, I did go say hi to Hamlet just now, and asked them if they knew my friend York, and said they knew him very well. So that was really great.
Alas.
Alas, poor York. And for some reason they pulled out a massive skull of some kind. Anyway, so
Anyway, yeah. To bees or not to bees.
Oh,
Yes.
yes. Way to bring it back to the pollinators. We're about to go inside and nerd out here about the bugs. Folks, if you are just tuning in, this is the very exciting part here of the stream, because if you are not familiar with Animal Crossing, Blathers, the museum curator, we'll just put it lightly, has a thing about bugs. And so we are so glad to be able to visit Kittyvile Island here with Emily Graslie with all of her fossil knowledge. We'll try to fill in some gaps with fish if we happen to go there. But Ryan is going to tell us all about the bugs. And Emily has just emerged there from the museum. Ryan has now decked himself out in bug expert mode.
I've got to get ready.
This is my cultural museum.
Oh my goodness.
That's so good.
David Rose, Schitt's Creek.
Yeah,
persona.
I went to full geek chic mode here, but I wonder if I have a better outfit for right now. Or at least, Patrick, you will appreciate this one.
Yes. Brad from the BA Test Kitchen. Nice.
That's so good.
Nice. Can we get?
That's really good.
You should rename yourself Allison. We gotta get that good old
That's
Allie
true.
in this. Oh my goodness gracious. Throw me in the water because I am ready. That's so great.
right.
Shout out to Brad. Hey Brad, you're awesome.
Now, this is usually my birding outfit, but I guess it can be applied to my bug enthusiast outfit for today.
Oh, definitely.
too.
I mean, I really like going out and looking for insects, but to just find them and look at them. You know, it's not always about collecting. I like to just go out and appreciate them where they are. Collecting is definitely super important for research and all of those kinds of applications. But, you know, just like going out birding, you can just go out and sort of appreciate the insects.
Yeah.
Ryan, what before we head into the museum, it's a good point. So we're about to go into a place that's curated, that's kind of set up so that we can learn about everything. But for the folks at home that are in the chat, and right now during the sheltered in place time, what are some ways for people to discover the vast amount of bugs that surround them, even in their front yard, backyard, or on the walk where they happen to be, or even in their own home? Potentially there's some bugs there to be discovered. What can you tell us about discovering bug life in their world?
Yeah, there definitely are. I mean, it's, you know, no reason to be terrified or anything. The insects around you are really not going to do anything to you. It's something like maybe 1% of all species could be a pest in some way. So really, there's much more out there to love than to ever be afraid of. And like you said, you can just observe around your house, in your basement, front yard, your backyard, even just around some potted plants that might be coming into bloom. And if you just take a moment to just, you know, sit still and watch, you'll see so much life going on. You know, go out, even dig up a little bit of soil and look through what's living in that top layer of soil. There can be more life in, you know, a square foot of soil than in vastly larger amounts of space above ground. There's so many things living in that soil. So go out and just appreciate it. You know, take some photos. There's those really awesome app, iNaturalist, that you can get on your phone and take photos, and it'll like auto identify them for you because it uses these AI algorithms. And so you can start to learn the names of all of your neighbors. You know, all these things that you live with, you're part of their system, they're part of your system. And so it's a great time to go out and really observe and appreciate all those things around you that before you might have just been too busy and you just walked right by.
That's awesome. Yeah, thank you so much, Ryan, for that. For the folks that are wondering in the chat, it is iNaturalist is that app, and it's very similar to the Critterpedia that you have in this Animal Crossing game in terms of looking up the different species that are there. So
it definitely is.
Very cool. It looks like someone said that they have a jar filled with pond water from on their porch, and they're looking at all the little things swimming around in it. That's really awesome. Tiny little ecosystem of a hermit crab. Yeah, that's great stuff. Yeah, and iNaturalist is curated in part, or I think maybe entirely, by the folks over at the California Academy of Sciences. So shout out to the Cal Academy up there. Okay, with that,
Yeah, Calicad.
yeah, Emily Graslie, we are standing in front of the Field Museum. Based on the sign, I'm just reading the sign over there. Can you
Yeah.
introduce us to your workplace, the Field, and then we're gonna go visit Kittyvile Island's rendition of that natural history museum. Tell us what's that sign out there mean to the folks?
Yeah, so Field Museum of Natural History. We're based in Chicago. We're one of the largest natural history museums in the world, which is pretty amazing. I think we're third largest in the country in terms of collections. So at the Field Museum, when it comes to like actual specimens in the museum, we have close to 30 million, and I think 16 million of those 30 million are just insects. So we always tell people, you know, like you can only fit so many Tyrannosaurus Rex fossil skeletons in a museum collection space, but you can sure fit a lot of lace wings and grasshoppers and mites and butterflies and those sort of things in collection spaces. So insect collection at the Field Museum is super important, and I was really curious to have Ryan come over and critique some of the exhibits here in Kittyville Museum version of Field Museum, and see like what they're doing great. And I'm gonna do it wearing my Space Wizard outfit because it's my favorite.
It's delightful.
It's amazing.
12 out of 10.
Looks like some Fantasia influence as well.
Yeah,
maybe some dancing. Yeah. All right, let's go.
All right.
I think I can go.
Thanks to everybody in the chat.
It takes a little bit of time for it to adjust to people going in.
Yes. I'm going to change my outfit from being camouflaged for bug watching to something more appropriate once we get inside.
Someone in chat asked how the Rex is doing at Field Museum. They're pretty good. They're still dead. 66 million years and going strong. Still a fossil.
The new setup is so good, though.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I loved it. Yeah.
If people haven't been to the Field Museum, you definitely should see Sue's new exhibit space. It's so cool. My favorite thing that they've done is there's a laser light show. So, you know, you'll have like a video start and it talks about the stuff that you can see on display. Well, there's like a couple of projectors hanging up on the wall, and they can do laser maps projecting on the individual bones of the skeleton. So there's an amazing like video sort of element that plays with voiceover. And I'm just stuck in TV world, so it's not actually voiceover, it's narration. Narration of the different parts of the skeleton, and they get highlighted with the different projectors, and it's like cool laser lights. It's so awesome.
Wow.
Gets to Chicago and comes to visit us when we're open again.
That's so awesome.
Oh, and quick shout out in the chat, we've got water
Team
quality.
Water quality. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's so great.
Oh,
Team
we're
Water
so
Quality
glad
is
that
in
you're
the
here
chat.
again.
I'm sure Team Water Quality would be super excited to have a laser show for their little critters there. It sounds really awesome, Emily, to have those lasers there with Sue. Although I did just want to ask very quickly, you know, we've been told to keep the lasers away from cephalopods generally in case we precipitated the overthrow of land by the ocean. Are we comfortable that those lasers are Sue safe in the museum?
You know, I cannot say for sure if they're going to contribute to the theropod overthrow of humanity, but they might have something to do with it.
All right. Well, it's been a good run, everybody, and Team Water Quality is there to make sure that no matter which way we end up being washed off the face of the planet, it's with appropriately balanced pH water out into the world. Awesome. Okay, we're heading over to the bug portion.
Yes.
Let's do it.
Let's do this.
I'll let Ryan lead the way here because I want to know what
where he goes first.
about.
Yeah. No. and Ryan, this is something that that is very exciting to have you here with us on this tour, because this is pretty much your real world work, right? Is making sure that you've got the appropriate setup for bugs and plants to thrive together, right?
Yeah, actually, yeah, this is kind of like I mean, this is basically where I was yesterday. So I work in a botanical garden doing all that care for plants that I mentioned. So plants indoors, keeping them healthy and happy, usually a long way from home. Um, and running a yearly butterfly exhibit. So we have live butterflies in one of our rooms that need care as well. So this is, yeah, this is very similar to my day to day, actually.
That's awesome. Can you describe to the folks how would you want to set up your greenhouse here that we have with the bugs and the plants in mind? What are some of the basics that you really want to make sure to nail?
Well, luckily, the museum does it pretty well. You have all the the host plants that the insects want to eat for our herbivores and pollinators and things. We've basically replicated what they like outside and brought it inside. So like that bagworm that just fell out of this tree, same species of tree the bagworm was found in. So this thing likes to eat leaves from this tree, and so we provide it to it so it can grow up, continue its life cycle. That is a caterpillar in there in its little sleeping bag, so it'll turn into a moth and hopefully make new caterpillars and new bags, and we'll be able to keep them going to have them on display in the museum.
That's very cool. So this bagworm that was just dropped out there, you were saying is going to be a moth there. So that's something that I mean, I just remember when I was a kid learning about the hungry caterpillar. That is a type of life history that is really pretty amazing to have that that caterpillar that then becomes a flighted insect. Can you tell us maybe a little bit more about that? Or actually, I know that there's butterflies and all that stuff a little bit later on, but maybe a quick intro of the bagworm here and then moths later.
Oh yeah, definitely. So a lot of the insects in Animal Crossing go through that transformation you described, or what we know as metamorphosis. So they'll start as something that looks nothing like the adult insect we're usually used to, like a caterpillar. If it goes through complete metamorphosis, it will go through a pupal stage. That's the like a chrysalis when you think of a butterfly, and then it has an adult stage. It looks completely different. And that's a lot of the insects in Animal Crossing. But we do have some hemimetabolites, or incomplete metamorphosis insects in Animal Crossing as well that we might get to see as we go through the museum. And they basically start off kind of looking like little adults, and they just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and eventually have wings and can reproduce when they're adults. So we might see some of those in here as well.
Oh, that's super exciting.
Yeah, so here we've got, so moths and butterflies. We got a caterpillar here. They do complete metamorphosis.
Ryan, I heard from an entomologist friend of mine that there's a species of bagworm where the female doesn't even leave the cocoon. The male just comes and can somehow reproduce with her while she's still in the bag. And then I didn't understand what was happening.
Yeah, no, that's actually true of one of the most common species that's sometimes a pest in the landscape that we have. It's the evergreen bagworm. It gets in, I mean, most evergreen things, but it can also get into a lot of other deciduous plants as well. And yeah, they grow up, the male and female caterpillars. They're in their bag growing up. They pupate into adults inside that bag. The male emerges and is this little gray fuzzy moth with completely clear wings, so it looks like fly's wings or a bee's wings, and they fly over to detecting females who are in their bags still, because they never leave. Using pheromones, they detect the females, and there's an opening in the bottom of the bag, and they basically mate through the opening between the male and the female. And she lays her eggs and dies in her bag, and then the next spring The eggs
Whoa.
hatch out in that bag with
What?
their
Oh,
dead
good
mother, and then escape and put out silk into the wind and balloon off and land on other plants to start eating again.
Oh,
What?
Oh my
wow.
God.
Brutal.
Oh man, is it nap time? I gotta lie down real quick.
Yeah.
No, this is only the
God, she just-
beginning, Patrick.
Oh no, the beginning.
Sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. I had to. I'm sorry.
Amazing. She just like phones it in, and she's like, I'm just gonna put the call out there. If you need me, I'm gonna be in my bag, and if it happens, it happens. And then if it happens, then she has babies, and then they wake up and they're like, "Mom," and then it's like you're waking up in a sleeping bag with the corpse of your mother. There's nothing not weird about that.
Well, it explains why they never get out of bed the rest of their life, right? If you started out your life like that, you're just nope, not getting out of bed, not worth it.
They need,
Let me tell you a story.
backroom therapists.
Oh my goodness.
Oh gosh.
Wow. Let's first
wow.
get the bag to be a blanket, one step at a time. Oh my goodness, that is incredible.
Nature's brutal, you guys.
Yeah.
There's
Where's that pleasant butterfly house?
This
oh
way.
yeah, you gotta go wash your mind of
Oh, everybody went the other way. Oh gosh.
Wow. I did notice that you had an Atlas moth over there. Does anyone have any Atlas moth facts? I thought it was really amazing. I don't know why it's called an Atlas moth. Does it look like it has a map on its back, or because it's so huge? But I know that there's an Atlas moth up over here.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, I'm zooming in on the bee. Oh my gosh, look at his little bee baskets. Oh my gosh.
Look at it. It's got the pollen on it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm in love.
Nicely.
Full little pollen baskets, and people who study honeybees and solitary bees that collect pollen in different ways, whether it's on their legs or other types of bees collect it just all over like their abdomen. They just stuff pollen all over their body. But people will collect that pollen, and the color of it and the shape of the pollen when you put it under the microscope can tell you what flowers that bee was just visiting. So it's a way to study what they visit.
Oh
Do they
my
have
gosh.
preferences? How do those change through the year? Are they visiting native plants, or are they visiting more non-native things, or maybe even invasive things? And so that people can basically use bees to collect their pollen data for them, and they process it. And that
whoa.
study of pollen is palynology.
Dang. Do the bees get college credit for being research assistants, or?
I hope they're at least getting paid.
Okay. Nice.
That's so cool. You know what's awesome too is that this sort of pollen research isn't just on living things. So there are palynologists, like paleopalynologists, that look at pollen from different sedimentary deposits. And so there are certain places, like there's a cave that preserves Pleistocene animals in Wyoming, where all of these animals just like fell in. It's called the Natural Pit Trap Cave. And it's like, so if you're an entomologist and you want to know about the local bugs, one thing you might do is like make a pitfall trap, which is putting like a coffee can with some preservation fluid at the bottom of it, and then burying it at surface level with the ground. And so the bugs that wander in just kind of fall in, and then you have a good sample of the bugs in the area. And so there's this huge pitfall trap that did that, but it captured Pleistocene animals. So like saber-toothed cats and
Whoa.
all sorts of other animals that were roaming around Wyoming, like, 5 million years ago. And there's also all of the pollen that got swept in over a period of hundreds to thousands of years. And so there are palynologists that are looking at how the pollen, like the climate of the pollen was during the Pleistocene, by looking at the different layers of it in the sediment at the bottom of a cave.
Wow.
So cool.
Wow.
Isn't that cool?
That's
so cool. It's amazing. Do you, it would be awesome if we then showed that pollen to a modern bee, and just they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's some heirloom stuff right there."
That is some bespoke artisanal pollen.
Exactly. Yeah, that is. Wow, that's incredible. Super cool. Sorry, I led everyone over here to the Atlas moth, interrupting a little bit. Ryan, do you have facts about the Atlas moth? And then maybe one thing before we go over to see the butterflies, this is something that I didn't know until recently, is what is the real difference between a moth and a butterfly? So we got the Atlas moth here. And then, yeah, I don't know if you know too much about them in particular, but then moths and butterflies, what's the deal?
Yeah, that is one of the, like, I think biggest sort of questions or things that people think about, that, you know, like in our butterfly exhibit, people ask about it all the time. We have signs about it because it's so common. But I'll start with just the Atlas moth here. To have this Atlas moth in your exhibit, you would need to be breeding them or buying in cocoons from, you know, sustainable butterfly and moth farms, almost all of the time, basically, because this moth as an adult is going to live for maybe 3 or 5 days after it emerges from its cocoon.
Whoa.
So it's a member of the giant silk moth family, the Saturniidae. And when they eat tons as caterpillars, they just become big old chonkers and pupate. And then as adults, they have completely reduced functionless mouth parts and do not eat anymore.
Wow.
So they have to emerge, find a mate, and the female has to lay eggs very quickly.
Wow.
My goodness. That's so cool. And so why is it called an Atlas moth? Do we know? That's just for myself.
That I don't know where the name would come from, because really the markings on an Atlas moth, if you look at the tips of their wings, they kind of look like the side of a snake's head. If you look at the placard of it here, you can kind of zoom in. It looks like the side profile of a snake.
Okay.
Sorry.
So that's kind of part of its coloration defenses that it has. It also has those clear patches in its wings. So you can see, if it's resting on a tree, you would see tree bark through those clear patches on the wings. So that's all part of its
Wow.
defenses. It's camouflage. I think it definitely has a lot of patterns on its wings, so the name could definitely come from a map type patterning on the wings. You know, some of that might look kind of like topographical lines or things like that. So I imagine that probably plays into it.
But so this moth is potentially trying to mimic looking like a snake in the tree.
Yeah. So a bird that would normally love to eat a big, fat, and protein rich moth would look at that and instead see, like, oh, there might be a snake standing there. If I go over there, I might get eaten. And so the moth protects itself by having that camouflage on it.
Wow. So you can imagine if you were a bird eating those moths, you'd be like, trying to find them and just being, I'm sick and tired of these moths, and or sick and tired of these snakes when I'm trying to find moths flying or something. Try to do a snakes on a plane reference. I beefed it real hard. I'm sorry, everybody.
Snakes on a moth.
There you go. Snakes on a moth. Sick and tired of these snakes on my moth. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you for the assist. That's wonderful. Okay, I'm done. But then maybe let's go see the butterflies. And then what was that difference between the moths and butterflies as we go?
Yeah, we can kind of start walking over there, because it's kind of down the corner. So really, so moths and butterflies and skippers, this other little group that sometimes gets called something different, are all in the same order, called the Lepidoptera, which means scaled wings. So they're all related to one another. And really the earliest ancestor is what turned into the moths that we know nowadays. They diversified, and there's so many different kinds of moths now. And butterflies actually arose from within those lineages of moths. If you look at the evolutionary tree of Lepidoptera, they form their own group. So there's definitely a thing called a butterfly, but they are nested within moths. So really, butterflies are moths as well as being butterflies. And some of their differences have to do, obviously some reproductive differences and genetic differences and those sorts of things. But the general traits people like to go with are things like when they're active. Butterflies active during the day. Most moths are around at night, but definitely not all moths. We can see some examples in here. I think I saw a Madagascan sunset moth. Yeah, here's one.
Yes.
Just one of many moths that are active during the day. So they have that in relation to butterflies as well. So it's when you really get down to the main difference between a butterfly and moth, it can be more difficult to give easy characteristics because butterflies are moths. But there's, during the day, out during the day, butterflies hold their wings sort of up above their body when they're resting. Moths have their wings wrapped around them or flat. Those are all some of the easy ways to tell them apart. Butterflies have usually these antennae that are like a little thread with a club with a club at the end. Moths usually have just a thread with no club, or those big fuzzy antennae like you see on Luna moth and even atlas moths. They have those big fuzzy antennae on them.
And
That's
those
awesome.
antennae are for receptors, right? Like the atlas moth uses them to smell pheromones or send pheromone signals in the air, right?
Yeah. So like I mentioned, that family, those giant silk moths, a lot of those males tend to have those really huge feathery antennae, or what we call plumose antennae. And insect antennae are kind of, basically their noses, and they use them to detect those chemicals in the air. So, if you think about that atlas moth, and he has 3 days to live to find a mate, he needs to really find a mate quickly. And so he wants to have those huge antennae to find a mate as fast as possible.
Wow. I had no idea
Man,
about
that's so cool.
That is so cool.
I had a question here, Ryan. We've got some folks here in the chat that know a little bit here about the blue color there on the back of those blue morpho, or that's what they're saying in the chat, is that species there. And that is something that I wanted to ask you about this, because butterflies are absolutely beautiful. But one thing that folks may not know is that blue pigment in nature is actually very difficult to produce, biochemically speaking. So when you see blue out there, you're often kind of being tricked into seeing blue coloration. Can you tell us a little bit about those blue wings there on those butterflies? It's a really astute observation there in the chat there about that blue coloration.
Yeah, and you can see, and you can even see it's so cool. They render things so well in this game. As they flap their wings, the color is even changing between dark blue, light blue, and even white. And you see that on the Madagascan sunset moth. You see it in the blue bottle. You see it on the tiger butterfly. And all of those sort of metallic, iridescent colors that sort of change depending on how you're looking at the wing or as the wing moves, those are all created by, or those are all what we call structural colors. So there is no pigment there producing color like we're used to most colors in our everyday life. It's actually all based on the structure of the wing interfering with light and breaking it up and making it refract in at different angles, or absorbing certain wavelengths and reflecting only a portion of the spectrum. So that's the color that you see. And it can be like nano size, pits or little towers. It can be little curves in the wing. Sometimes it's layers of cuticle, the insect exoskeleton, and then just open space or air that makes the light bend and then refract out at a different angle, and that creates the light, or the color. Sorry, that we see is them basically messing around with the light so that we perceive it differently when it comes back off of them.
That's amazing. And just a quick follow-up. So I know that we see it as blue, but I also know that bees see flowers in a very different way than we do. We see flowers in their colors, but bees are able to see different wavelengths of the light that the flowers might be making, maybe saying a big bullseye here, land here, to fill up your pollen basket. Do you know what the butterflies are seeing with the blue, or are they trying to be blue for birds to startle them, or who's the blue for? Who's looking at that? Do we know?
You know that I don't know. There's
Okay.
we might maybe someone maybe a Lepidopterist has joined us in the chat.
Yeah.
But it probably depends on what that insect interacts with, their environment. Like the blue morpho or the emperor that we have in the game here. They are from jungles where it's usually very dark, and
Okay.
it's thought that when their wings are closed, they basically can hide in the shadows. It's all pigment based brown colors, and they blend into the deep jungle. But when they open their wings, it's that flash of bright white and blue, and it can almost be distracting. Like there's little flash bulbs at different points in the forest as they're flying away. So a bird might aim for where it sees a flash, but the butterfly's already moved on from that spot.
Wow.
Huh.
That's fascinating. Thank you so much. And I did see in the chat lots of people excited about Team Snail getting a lot of screen time there. I think we've got a pollinating snail there in the background. I'm just gonna go with it.
There is a snail. Oh,
Yeah.
they went with one snail.
Yay.
Snail's pollinating there in the background, doing its mollusk mightiest best. Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you so much for that explanation there of butterflies v moths, that structural coloration. Super awesome stuff. Thank you, Ryan.
What's really cool about the structural color thing too is that that won't fade over time. So even a blue morpho butterfly that was collected in South America like 100 years ago is still going to look as vibrant today as it did when it was collected, if it's protected in a museum collection. So that's really cool too to be able to see how that light perseveres. And what's neat is that structural color isn't just in like butterflies. There are birds that have structural coloration in their feathers. And my favorite example of it is in the birds of paradise that do some of those wacky dances. If you ever Google like bird mating dance, there's a bird in, I can't remember where it lives, but it's got the blue dots on the front of it, and it sort of like fans out its face, and it has structural blue pigment, iridescent pigment in certain spots in the feathers on the front of it. And then the feathers that surround it are structural black color that absorb 99% of all light. And so it makes, it makes the iridescent colors stick out so much against the black backdrop. So that's really cool, because then there are like artists and people who work on developing technology for like space telescopes, like and satellites that they send into space that are developing the structural black color that they can use as a pigment, essentially as like a paint, in order to allow the telescopes to see further into space. And so they end up going to museum collections to look at the structural color of the black in the birds of paradise to help inform how they develop the paint that's going to go into space. It's so wild.
So cool.
That's so cool.
That's amazing.
I think the one that you're talking about, Emily, is the one of the newest species of birds of paradise that has been described over in New Guinea. If I'm remembering the right bird. I'm quite a bird nerd, so
that's exciting.
Yeah, it was. I mean, besides the fact that they're, we're using that to study things for space. I mean, this is a brand new bird to the science world as well. So it's just, there are so many things out there in nature that, we haven't even discovered yet that have so many applications to our lives and to other aspects of science. So yeah, the coolest.
I think it's very poetic too, that a bird of paradise is helping us study the heavens too. So that's that's super cool.
So poetic.
That was a less egregious pun. Oh, thank you, both Emily's and Ryan, for all that information. We need to go to the chat here real quick. And this is something I'm excited for the answer. Ryan, a key characteristic that people know about moths from this game and from their everyday lives. What is up with the moths and their affection for the light? What is happening when a moth is heading towards the light? Do we know?
Yeah, moths and really a lot of insects that might be active at night. So if we stick to moths, a lot of moths are navigating at night using the light from the moon.
Whoa.
That's the light that the moon is reflecting, and sometimes starlight. It's moving at the scale that you do on the surface of the Earth. The moon essentially stays in the same place in the sky while you move, and that's what they're relying on. Like if a moth is traveling and the moth's like, okay, I'm keeping the moon on my right hand side. That's how I'm moving. If that's how he's thinking. Then you have a light bulb outside. It's much, much brighter than the moon. And a moth can essentially start, or other insect will start navigating by the light bulb. And so if you're trying to always keep a light bulb on your right hand side, you're going to start moving past it, and you're going to start to have to turn to keep it on your right hand side.
Oh.
And that turns into basically a spiral that ends up them getting closer and closer and closer, and basically then kind of trapped at the light because they don't know how to navigate away from the light. And there are some light bulbs that they've started to put out that are more insect friendly, that have wavelengths that are a little harder for them to detect, and they don't so that you can get fewer insects getting trapped at lights. So you can either opt for those kinds of insect safe lights you can find in the store, or you can just try to minimize the lights you have on at night outside your house. Just opt for motion sensing lights if it's a security thing. Because the more you can reduce light pollution, which is really that's what this is an issue of, is light pollution. The more you can let them, go about their business and their normal navigation at night.
Wow. So a light outside can be a light-based death whirlpool that sucks in. It's a maelstrom for the moths, pulling, and other insects pulling them closer because they think that it's the moon. That's really fascinating. And there's a lot of people in the chat that were bringing up the old moth meme that was going around.
Exactly.
Ryan, how was that as an entomologist to have the moth be such a major meme back in the day?
Oh, I mean, I loved it because it's not only was it an insect, but it was a moth, not a butterfly. Because usually people only ask you about butterflies and honeybees. So having a moth out there in public was awesome.
Nice.
God, I can't believe that meme was that long ago.
How long ago was it? I have no conception of
it's
time.
It's 2018.
2018? Well, 2020 has lasted 15 years already. So
yes.
that's been several decades. Wow.
Oh.
That's amazing. Well, thank you so much. And maybe something related to that, just make sure that we get to it. I know that this is something that Emily Graslie, you brought up on our first stream, and Ryan, I'm sure you've got stuff to weigh in as well. But bugs are having a hard time generally. People know that many species out there are suffering due to different things, from climate change to habitat destruction or other such things. But we often hear about maybe larger bodied, more charismatic animals, but bugs are some of those animals that are so crucial to how the whole thing works, and they are animals that are struggling a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about the issues that bugs are facing and maybe what we can do about them? Just want to make sure that we hit that at some point here, and I feel like it comes up from the light pollution issue. Like what's going on with bugs?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people have seen the many news articles that came out in the past, not even year. Has it been maybe 10 months, 9 months or so, about the insect apocalypse, that people are recording fewer and fewer insects, lower density of things that were once common, things becoming more and more rare. And I'd say, to talk about it globally, you can talk about a lot of big drivers that affect insects that really are affecting all of life in some way. And so that's things like climate change, big drivers of changes at a global scale. Land use changes, so urbanization and reduction of natural areas of what was native areas. Like we talked about, the insects on Emily's Island in Kittyville rely on those tulips that are native here. Well, if you get rid of all those because you wanted to build a new superstore, there's nothing left for the native insects anymore. And if there's no native insects around, then they were probably food for some kind of native bird. that native bird might have been food for some other native animal. And so you're having you have ripple effects up the food web. And those are, so there's these big drivers that are affecting things. Globalization, agricultural intensification, and use of pesticides can be harmful. That's a really nuanced subject, but those are things that are affecting insects at a global scale. And I know there's a lot of great entomologists out there putting out a lot of really good work, analyzing these long-term data sets we have to really try to determine what's going on, and what the drivers are, so we can try to address what's causing this.
That's awesome. And
Yeah.
yeah, go for it.
Oh, I was just going to say, I know that it can feel like super overwhelming that when you start talking about like global biodiversity issues, and it can be like, well, what am I going to do in my tiny corner of the universe? And even if you don't have a backyard or a place where you can plant, native flowers to help your own local environments, I think just having like a good attitude about bugs can really go like 110% of the way sometimes, which I think is why I'm so frustrated with blathers, because
Yes.
I mean, bugs are awesome and bugs need champions. Bugs are OP. Like, bugs are the best.
Yeah.
Bugs have been around. They're some of the first life forms on the planet. Millipedes learned how to breathe oxygen through their like exoskeleton, like 300 million years ago. That's something that we should like stand. Can we stand millipedes here?
Everybody, let's get
absolutely.
Let's get some millipede love in the chat, if you would. Some of the original oxygen inside their body cavity innovators there. If we could just get those W's, the stands there for the millipedes in the chat. That's awesome.
You're one millipede.
I like all the little M's. That's their legs.
There you go. Let's get some M's for millipedes, everybody.
Millipedes.
Yes. Millie.
Oh,
Ooh,
many M's.
can we get a million millipede M's here in the chat? We'll be here tomorrow, but we can do it. I believe in us. Oh, look at it go.
Oh.
Look at him. You
Look
can
at
actually see
him.
the millipedes. The longer the M chain is, you actually see the millipede.
I love it.
That's so
and I do
cool.
also say, I know millipedes aren't insects, but they're all, they're arthropod friends.
That's
Exactly.
amazing. Oh, that's so cool. Well, thank you so much, Ryan, for all of that information in the butterfly world. Emily Simpson, do you have some bugs that you would like us to go visit now?
We got to keep on going.
Let's go. Lead the way. Let's go take a look. All right, off we go.
We're
Into the light,
going
like a
on
moth.
an adventure.
That's awesome. Maybe a transitional question for you, Ryan. If anyone here in the chat was interested in getting into working with bugs, how does one go about doing that?
Well, I would say entomology usually comes up usually at the college level for formal education, but there are lots of other institutions that offer informal classes as well as formal classes on entomology. If lots of museums, botanical gardens, like where I work, I teach all kinds of classes about entomology and pollinators and pollinator gardening and all those kind of aspects of entomology. And it's also a part of a lot of other fields. Like if you're interested in anything with like agriculture, you're going to learn about pest insects and their biology, their ecology. And so it weaves its way into a lot of things. If you're really interested in pursuing it, look up places that have entomology degrees and departments if you're at that stage of life. Otherwise, you could definitely look at things like community-based science projects that are out there that are going to train you to do something like plant a patch of flowers, watch it for 5 minutes every week, and record all the different arthropods that visit it. You're going to be collecting data for an entomology-based research project. You can like we mentioned, iNaturalist before. That'll be sort of like training yourself to learn about arthropods and reading about the biology of the things you find. there's research projects on iNaturalist that they want pictures of certain things that you contribute to their project, and because they want to know things like the distribution of a certain species. So if you get a picture of it, they can say, oh, we never knew that it occurred in that area anymore, but you just got a picture of it for us. So there's all those kinds of ways you can get involved.
That's great.
Oh, that's excellent. Thank you.
All right, Ryan, do you have a favorite bug in Animal Crossing that we haven't talked about yet? I want to make sure that you get to nerd out over a favorite bug or insect or something here.
I feel like it'll be we'll get to the Lethoceros giant water bug on the way back out. It's in the main insect area of the museum.
Okay, so giant water bug, everybody, stay tuned. Coming up here shortly.
My avatar.
It's your avatar, so it makes sense. Makes sense that we have to go check it out.
Can you tell us a little bit? Let's dispel maybe some tarantula myths that Animal Crossing may have for us. As someone who was jumped by a tarantula, I would like to just point out that is a very unlikely occurrence in the real world, correct?
Yes. Oh my gosh, yes. Yeah, they're displaying tarantulas as if their sole purpose in life is to chase you and try to bite you. With a lot of tarantulas, or tarantulas and spiders in general, can't even maintain running for as long. Like the tarantulas in this game will chase you forever, but they actually have a pretty limited capacity for how long they can run. Because of the type of lungs they have, their book lungs, they essentially just reach the point at which they cannot keep up that level of activity pretty quickly, so they wouldn't be able to chase you anymore. And really unlikely they're going to chase you to begin with. They're reclusive, docile creatures, like you see here. He's hiding behind those logs. It's adorable. They're really they sit and wait. They lay a lot of tarantulas lay webbing onto the ground and just sit and wait till they feel vibrations of something walking on it and then pounce. They're prey to a lot of other animals, so they don't want to chase you and get involved with you. They don't want to die. They're not aggressive things at all. And usually the worst that would happen to you with a lot of tarantula species would be that they will rub their legs together and sort of throw off these hairs that are on them, called urticating hairs, that are they're barbed hairs that stick into your skin or get in your nose and your eyes, and they make you itchy. They kind of burn. You get little red welts because of all the tiny barbs on these hairs, and they do that to distract and kind of hurt you while they run away. They don't want to interact with you in that way. So definitely don't make Animal Crossing don't let it give you arachnophobia about tarantulas at all.
That's fascinating.
Ranchos are our friends.
Yeah, I was gonna say I feel like they need the McElroys to come in here and help them rebrand.
Absolutely.
Really get on the ranchos there.
Just giving us ranchos was such a contribution.
That's so great. And urticating hairs, yeah, for the people in the chat, that's another great band name related to the bugs. There.
Or the medical term, acute urticaria. That sounds like a good.
Whoa.
A good name.
Urticaria. That sounds Game of Thronesy almost. Okay.
I was gonna say
mother of tarantulas.
Yeah, I have a new name for someone in my next D&D session there.
Ranchos. There's a question in chat. What can we tell the folks about tarantula frog mutualism? I am ignorant as to this particular topic.
So am I.
Oh.
I have to say, I studied a lot. My training is a lot in insects and not a very expansive in other arthropods. So that is something I have not heard of, and I'm kind of Googling right now because that sounds really interesting.
Tarantula frog mutualism.
Wow, yeah, it's here. Do you know Emily?
Well, I think I just saw it on the internet. I would need to do a little more sleuthing as well. But there's something about how one keeps one another as it's like a mutualism, where I don't know. You probably could just Google it and find out more information than what I'm going to word vomit at you right now.
Without looking it up, I'm just imagining that the tarantula hops on the back of the frog to swim across a pond, but that is completely unscientific, but it's my preferred mental image at the moment. So if the chat could not ruin that for me, I appreciate it. I'm sure it's something very different.
It is. It sounds very cool. I don't know if you want me to dispel your mental image.
Go
there,
for it. Yeah, I guess knowledge is important.
So it sounds like this species of tarantula provides the frog protection from predators, obviously, and food, because the tarantula, spiders liquefy and eat most of the insides of their prey, but then there's leftovers, and the frog basically gets to eat the leftovers. And the frog forages for little insects like ants that might harm the tarantula's eggs, which is amazing.
Okay.
That's amazing.
So these two bros are like hanging out in the forest, just like having a spider frog party.
Yeah.
And like, I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine, but please not with your urticating hairs kind of
Yeah,
deal.
Exactly.
Oh, that's puns. That's puns. It's in there. Yeah, do you think that they just sit around thinking about, like, we're both known for our legs?
All right, so
That's
there's a pressing question that we haven't brought up yet for Emily and Ryan. What are your thoughts and your feelings about Flick in the game?
Oh, I love the man. Like I almost used like a vacation day from my real job when Flick was on my island last week. I was like, here's my chance. I didn't. I did my work. Unfortunately, not all my work is live streaming Animal Crossing. But yeah, it was really awesome, and I appreciate that the developers did include a mega insect fan in the game. So I'm a huge fan of Flick. I hope he comes back to my island soon.
Yeah, I love Flick so much. I feel like he is basically like the purest representation of an entomologist. That
awesome.
You're an entomologist if you just love insects. You are fascinated by them, you just want to learn about them and appreciate them, as much as you possibly can. It's not, to me, it's not about a degree that makes you an entomologist. Flick is an awesome entomologist. He loves insects. He uses insects to make his art. He inspire him. Like he's an entomologist. He's awesome.
Yeah, Flick is amazing because he helped me pay off a whole wing of my house. So
did you mean to say a wing? A wing? The appropriate number of wings of your house? Nice.
Wings.
Definitely.
And 6 legs of my house as well.
Yeah.
Emily, I can't help but notice that since the last time we streamed, you have a mole cricket now. Yay!
Oh yeah, that was because of you. I immediately went one after you told me that. So I have my mole cricket now.
Amazing. They are so cool.
What can you tell us about mole crickets? There's a very similar display that we have at the aquarium that has ghost shrimp and fat innkeeper worms hanging out in burrows beneath the muck. So burrowing animals, definitely lesser seen, but certainly very appreciated animals. And so this mole cricket looks very similar to a ghost shrimp that we might have over in our sloughie, muddy environments over here. So what's up with mole crickets? What are they up to?
Yeah, mole crickets, they're down in the ground in their burrows. They have these really cool adapted front legs that are digging legs, or what we call fossorial legs. They're shaped like shovels. Whoa. And so if you see one on the surface, like if there's a big rainfall, they'll get flooded out, or after, if they get tilled up, like in crop fields that are getting worked, they can dig back down really, really quickly. They're so good at digging. They have reduced wings because they don't really need to fly. They're living underground, and they are so cool. And like you said, they can be hard to find. Like you have to, if you like know a farmer and you know they're doing stuff in their field, you should really go out, almost like get behind where their tractor just ran and see what you can find that got brought up to the surface while you can.
Wow, that's
cool.
amazing. And so you said what? Sorry, what was the name of the?
Fossorial.
Fossorial. There's the word.
Digging
of the day,
legs.
everybody.
Yeah.
Digging
leg.
That. Can I please? Someone in the chat said video about worm grunting. This may be the same thing as worm charming.
If it's what I'm thinking of, producing vibrations in the ground to make them come up to the surface.
Yes, this is one of the international competitions. I cannot wait to see myself someday. I'm going to go to the UK where they have the World Worm Charming Championship, and people get like a 3x3 meter square, and they have a period of time where they have to charm the most number of worms to the surface of the earth. And the last world champion of worm charmers was a 13-year-old girl, and I'm obsessed.
Whoa.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
Awesome.
Worm charming.
Oh my gosh.
Is there anything better?
She's my new
I
hero.
can't wait.
Oh my goodness.
I want to quit my life and become a documentary filmmaker solely with the goal of like profiling worm charming everywhere.
Wow.
Probably only in like 2 places, but I want to go.
That's amazing.
Speak the stories.
You should take it around the world, worm charming around the world, and just see what kind of worms you can charm in places where they're not aware of the practice, and then just spread the worm charming love around the planet.
Yeah, spread the worm mold, the word.
Worm?
Yeah,
worm.
We'll take it around the worm.
Well, and it's kind of like it's basically imitating what woodcocks do, right? They do their funny little walking dance, and that doesn't that charm worms to the surface?
Wait, what?
Yeah.
Don't the vibrations bring worms to the surface?
Yeah, that's a thought about the woodcock. The bird, you guys know the bird? Oh man, they have the coolest.
They're
so
cute.
Their eyes are like on the top of their heads, and they look
best
so ridiculous.
dance. Oh my gosh.
Their vibrations are bringing all the worms to your yard. Is that the?
Yes.
Is that? I'm just trying to keep up.
Bring all the worms out of your yard.
Okay. Oh my goodness.
Oh, I don't know if you guys saw the there was a new like viral video that made the rounds recently of a woodcock and her 2 chicks following behind her, and she's like teaching them the little dance, and be still my heart. It is so cute.
So cute.
I like the YouTube videos where people take those videos of woodcocks doing their funny dance, and then they put them on to like music like "Staying Alive."
Yeah.
You know. When I walk, and then it's just like woodcocks doing it. Thing.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Seen quite a few of those recently. Those are awesome. Worm
like
charming.
Every day in my life.
Worm charming.
Worm
oh my gosh.
charming. We've got pollinating mollusks and worm charming. I'm delighted.
Everything's amazing.
Consider myself charmed. This is really so great.
I also want to give props to the developers because I think they did a pretty decent job with their like little lab setup here. Except I don't understand why they're breeding flies. I'm assuming for some sort of genetic study, and then they also have a fly swatter. Seems a little cruel.
Would those would be fruit flies then, huh? I remember.
I don't know.
Yeah, I remember doing that.
Yeah.
Are they fruit flies? Let's get to the bottom of that, Ryan.
I don't think so. They are bright green, metallic green, which reminds you more of like the green bottles, the muscady, like the house flies.
Okay.
Or the Califoridae have a lot of metallic flies in that family as well. And so I think what they're going for is, fly-based genetics. And this is, unfortunately, one of those areas where Animal Crossing does do us a little bit of disservice in that this fly is just called fly.
Yep.
There's just this fly and mosquitoes later, but But otherwise, all of flies, an incredibly diverse group of insects, is just down to mosquito and fly. So it might be hard to say what kind of fly this is. That there's so many other flies that we could have in the game. But they chose to do lots of butterflies instead.
Okay.
So Ryan,
it,
I actually have a question for you, and I saw someone asking the same thing in chat. Right now we're watching this little miscellaneous fly here rubbing its hands together. What is happening? Is it plotting its next evil plan? What's going on?
Plotting for how it's going to make it to the worm charming championship.
Yeah. It's excellent. I'll just fly there.
It's how it's going to take over the worm. No, that was a bad one.
The world, whatever portmanteau we came up with.
When you see insects doing that, they're actually usually cleaning themselves. They're grooming. Like I mentioned, your antennae are your nose when you're an insect, and they have other chemical receptors used for taste on and places around their head, around their mouth parts, on legs, on their tarsi or their feet. And you have to clean those things off, otherwise they may stop detecting as well. So insects actually spend a lot of time cleaning themselves, rubbing their antennae, rubbing their eyes, their legs, all of those kinds of things. So I think he's just getting himself nice and clean.
A little bath.
Yeah, there are people in the chat saying that this is excellent technique. It's been at least 20 seconds singing happy birthday to itself twice.
Oh, yeah.
Very good job. Oh,
yeah, well, he's watching all of his friends not social distancing up there, so yeah.
That's fascinating. That's very cool. Yeah, whenever we see fly just described as just fly, I'm always reminded of the Mitch Hedberg joke about how you could have just called a fly land because that's what it does half of the time. But shout out Mitch Hedberg.
Peace, Mitch Hedberg.
Such a good joke.
I'm tired of trying to follow my dreams. I'm just gonna ask them where they're going and meet up with them later.
Oh yeah. Oh, shout out.
R.I.P.
Yeah, dogs are forever in the push-up position.
Yeah.
Such a great. He had a lot of really great animal jokes. All right.
So good.
He did. Oh, miss you, Mitch Hedberg.
What can you tell us? Maybe behind you there, Ryan. We've got a looks like a butterfly and some chrysalises. What's the plural? Tell us a little bit about this display. It's pretty common in different natural history museums. Very, very exciting stuff to see there.
Yeah, definitely. So this seems to be where they are. Looks like the museum is buying in chrysalises or chrysalids, whichever you want to say. And rearing out adults to add them into the exhibit. So it's similar to what I do to run my butterfly exhibit. And what we have here is a paper kite, which is actually, it's super well known because it is so prevalent in live butterfly displays. You see it all the time. It's a pretty large butterfly. Its wings especially are really broad, and when it flaps, it does kind of look like almost like if you imagine tissue paper falling through the air and how it's kind of wavy and loose. It's how their wings look. They're really pretty when they fly. And this is another insect where we can bring up that insects are not dirty and they clean themselves all the time because this butterfly is a member of the family called Nymphalidae, or the brush-footed butterflies. And they're called brush-footed butterflies because their first pair of legs are reduced and modified into basically little brushes that they use to wipe off their eyes and their face and antennae and all of those things to keep themselves clean. So when they're standing, they look like they only have 4 legs, but they do still have 6 legs.
Wow.
That's fascinating. And we've got folks in the chat that are pointing out the attention to detail where we've got little Kim wipes over in the corner there. Anyone who's been in any kind of lab work. Yep.
I mean, I'm kind of disappointed there aren't, stacks of empty pipette tip boxes that no one wants to refill.
Yeah.
Because that would really look like a lab.
Yeah.
So that was my life in grad school, was just pipette tips. So
That or they don't have a computer in here that still uses a floppy disk drive.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was my college lab
Yeah, there's
experience.
some sign that says temporary placement of XYZ equipment, and it's dated for 2009.
Yeah.
That's what it needs.
Yeah.
Like an emergency call list that has 3 people who retired on it.
Yeah.
Like they're not even in the lab anymore.
Yeah, I should be able to open up this drawer and find an old vial of DDT that was forgotten about.
Right. Yeah. Hashtag lab life going on right now. Yeah, a lot of people recognizing that. The pipette tip, so many people.
The MSDS charts just kind of taped to each cabinet. I think this is what's in here.
Yeah.
What was that, Emily Graslie?
Just someone in chat pointed out that if we have a question about a word we don't understand, we probably need an etymologist instead of an entomologist.
Oh. No, that's that's a good one.
Yeah, you would be surprised the ironic confusion between when you're an entomologist and people typing calling you an etymologist, when it's so close and so ironic,
That's well, if you were trying to get to the root of that word, you might find a mole cricket along the way, right? If it was, yeah, we brought it back. That's awesome. There's a question here. Just an average person want to learn more about bugs and insect life. Where should I start? How much can I learn in my own backyard? Ryan, you mentioned this a little bit earlier, but maybe we can do another plug for iNaturalist as a tool for the folks out there to learn more about the bugs in their backyard.
Yeah, you should definitely download iNaturalist. There's lots of other apps too that are a lot of times more specific. So there's Plant Snap for plants. There's, I think it's just called LEPS, and that's for moths and butterflies. And that one is awesome for moths because they have amazing lepidopterists on there who are curating that. So the algorithm's really good. And I use that for moths all the time because most moths are little and indistinct. But you can use all of those things to take pictures with your phone right into the app. Or iNaturalist, you can upload pictures on the website too, so you don't have to have a smartphone. And it'll identify things for you, so you can look them up, read about certain species of whatever you're looking at. Whether it's a Wikipedia article or you find a book at the library. Well, maybe you can't go to the library right now, but eventually you can go to a library. Or articles from state extension services have so much information in them about a lot of species that you'd encounter around your yard, because that's what they get asked about all the time. That's a really great way to get started. And just, the first step is learning their names, learning the names of the things that live with you. And that's a solid choice to get started with.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
One other cool thing that you can do is if you're active on social media on Twitter, there's a ton of awesome entomologists on Twitter you can find. If you go outside and you find a bug and you don't know what it is, I've had super great luck just taking a picture of it if you've got one and tweeting it at the Entomological Society of America, because if they don't know what it is, they'll know somebody who does. So it's been a really useful tool. If I just and I also have a millipede guy on speed dial basically. So if I ever find a millipede, I don't know what it is, I texted it to my millipede friend Derek, and he'll do that for anybody, not just me. So it's really cool to follow entomologists online because they can sort of be your go-to folks for telling you what you've got. And if they don't know, they probably can connect you with someone who does. So that's always really cool too.
Shout out to Derek. Yeah, we've got M's going in the chat right now for millipedes.
For the millipede.
Yes, millipede love.
Dial? Yeah.
Leg boys.
Very leggy boys.
And that reminds me, there's a social media list of entomologists and what they study. I think it's the list Morgan Jackson put together. And I think it's publicly available. I'd have to double check on that, but there's ways. So there's lots of ways to find lots of entomologists. to follow, and they're always posting things, so you'll even just like passively learn while you're on social media. I mean, I learn new things every day from all the scientists I follow. I love it.
That's awesome. We got some love in the chat for a local entomologist, Maureen Berg.
Oh, yeah.
Maureen, Dr.
Oh, yeah.
Maureen Bug up in Berkeley. Or
Yep.
yeah, up there. That's awesome. And then some questions here that maybe we haven't gotten to. Is there a pet peeve about insects in Animal Crossing that we need to dispel? They've done a really good job as far as the animal models and everything that they're doing, but is there anything that bristles a little bit about the bugs here, Ryan? Anything in particular?
I mean, I'd say it goes back, I think, to fly and moth. That there's, I wish there was even more of a diversity of insects. I think total the game, throughout the year, I think there's 78 different arthropods and mollusks. The things they classify as these kinds of critters that you can catch. When there's so much more than that. Even if you just say arthropods and exclude mollusks like the snails, you could represent such a bigger diversity. And there's a lot of beetles you can eventually catch in this game. Which makes sense. There's a really big culture around, big cool beetles and beetle like love and appreciation in Japan and some other Asian countries. So it kind of makes sense this game would have a big beetle focus. But there's one honeybee. When it's like you could put in a bumblebee, you could put in a little sweat bee, you could have from flies, you can have. I mean, you get attacked by a mosquito. Why can't you also get attacked by like a botfly and have
oh my goodness,
your skin?
Oh, you just opened up a whole new world, Ryan.
A whole new can of worms.
Oh my, yeah.
I can't. You know what I want? I want to be able to contract a tapeworm in Animal Crossing, and then when I use my toilet, I want to be able to collect it from my toilet. Why can't that happen?
Yeah, why is that not something you can do?
Yeah, can we talk about worm charming out of someone's back boil and it's a botfly? Let's talk about that. That's the crossover.
Botfly charming.
That's why we get kicked out of the game developer meetings every time. Like, no, listen, we've got a really good idea.
We start strong with some really good ideas, and then we go to bot flies.
Ryan, can you describe for the people in the chat who might not be familiar, and we do not recommend anyone to go and Google this after and watch the videos, but Botfly home starter kit involves a fly and your own flesh. Can you tell us a little bit more about how one might enjoy a botfly pet?
So botflies are a super cool group of flies. It's another insect that doesn't eat as an adult. They just want to lay eggs. And each species of botfly goes after a different species or set of species to lay their eggs, and the adult basically lays the egg in its host, whether it's in a pre-existing, whether it's in a wound or in a nose, like for the reindeer botfly, the egg gets in the nose of the reindeer, and it hatches, and the larva basically lives in the tissue of its host, feeding until it's ready to crawl back out and pupate into a new adult fly.
Wow. We've got a lot of people that are saying that they are leaving now and that we did not warn them fast enough. But that's amazing. And then maybe related to the tapeworm there, Emily Graslie, did you want to expand on that? Or because I have a story to share.
No.
Oh no.
I mean, the tapeworm thing, this is a side project of mine, but when I advocate for the conservation of all species, I mean all species, and that includes parasites of many endangered organisms. So, I mean, pandas are amazing, and we should save pandas, but also save the pandas' tapeworms as well. Like you don't understand that relationship. It co-evolved for millions of years. So when you advocate for saving pandas, you should also save their tapeworms. But anyway, I just think there's a lot of like symbiotic relationships or parasitic relationships between organisms we don't understand, and that might involve getting a tapeworm, occasionally. And just life is beautiful.
That is amazing. Yeah. So we've got a lot of people in chat saying, please no. But then someone did say, who thought it was a good idea to have 4 biologists on stream at the same time? So you do know what you tuned into. The story I wanted to share is that my ichthyology professor over at UC Santa Cruz, Giacomo Bernardi, he had a friend of his that studied salmon up in Alaska. And one day he ate some raw salmon while he was up there. And then for a few months, he was feeling kind of off, nothing too bad, but he was losing a lot of weight and couldn't really tell what was going on. And he ended up asking a friend of his who was a parasitologist, like, hey, I don't know if I got like a mosquito thing or something, but yeah, I just don't feel too good. And the parasitologist was like, oh, well, just send me a stool sample. I'll take a closer look. And he found big old eggs of a tapeworm that he had contracted that is usually in a grizzly bear from the salmon that he ate. So he had a grizzly bear tapeworm in him. And so the guy said, oh, yeah, okay, you got a tapeworm. So here, take these drugs and then, wait for it and try to make sure that it all comes out in one piece, because if it breaks, they can regrow themselves. And so he took the medicine and then went to the restroom and ended up retrieving a 12-foot long tapeworm from his intestines that he now has in a jar on his desk as a testament, trophy, if you will, to his salmon research up in Alaska. So there it is. That was my story.
That is such a power move. It's like, you think you can take me down? Nothing can take me down. Here's the 12-foot long tapeworm that I pulled out of my own butt.
Yeah.
Science.
Exactly. Yeah. How's formaldehyde feeling, tapeworm? Oh, sorry. We've got we've got Emily. Sorry, we've got our boss texting us saying to move on. So I think we should move on. I'm done.
That was. You mean that wasn't enough nightmare fuel on our stream today? I don't. Yeah.
I'm dubbing this bench the bench of knowledge.
Oh gosh.
This is where we share stories.
Exactly.
friendly reminder to the chat. Please tweet at our organizations and tell them how much you enjoyed this today.
Yes,
Maybe
yes.
don't bring up the tapeworm thing.
Spread the word.
Please do.
Let everyone know.
Yeah, if this is the kind of content you'd like to see more of, like, subscribe, smash those bells, etc.
I saw one thing in the chat that I want to just give a quick shout out to. Someone asked about wasps, and of course, in Animal Crossing, there's only just wasp, and you knock down the nest and they attack you, which is kind of what people think wasps do, but there's only the social wasps might be a little aggressive if you bother where they live or attack them. Otherwise, they don't really want to bother with you. And then majority of wasps are solitary, like the solitary bees, and are really beneficial to us. They're visiting flowers and doing pollination. Many of them are parasitoids, which means they lay their eggs in other insects to raise their young. And so the larvae eat the insect that the eggs were laid in. And they do that to a lot of things that can be pest insects. So like if you've grown tomatoes, you get tomato hornworms, and it ends up with all these little white, things sticking out of it. Those are all the pupating wasps that were laid in it by one, female wasp. And so they're, wasps do so much for us that it really does them a disservice to even just say wasp, because they are so diverse and they do so much for us. And you really should learn about them and appreciate them and what they do for us.
That's excellent.
Wonderful.
As someone who's allergic to wasps, I fully appreciate their role in the world out there. But certainly, I was not aware of this particular game dynamic that wasps could come and sting you, and so it was pretty visceral for me to see that occur. But thankfully, you can make your own EpiPen in game, which is perfect. So
yes,
yeah, well done. Yeah, so thank you so much to the chat for being here this entire time. We had one big question. I don't know if we have time to get into it, but there was a question of there's people talking about using CRISPR or other techniques to get rid of mosquitoes or get rid of this kind of animal here or there. What are your thoughts about ideas of eradicating certain types of what we would consider to be pest insects? What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if we have time to get into it.
Okay.
Because it's really complicated. I mean, you think about it's a species that has been around probably much longer than humans. And we want to eradicate it. And it's so there's a lot of ethics that get into that too. Mm-hmm. And how does that affect the ecology? How does it affect the environment in other ways besides ourselves? If you think about it in a way that doesn't just center humans, how does that change our perspective on what the results are going to be from doing that? So yeah, I think it's a really interesting but really complicated subject.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so thanks, chat, for that question there.
All right, well, Patrick, we have about like 10 more minutes left, and we are standing in the perfect spot to talk about Ryan's favorite critter over here.
Yes, indeed. Here we are.
If we want to jump into dip our toes in the water with our little water bug there.
Oh, nice, Emily. Well done on that transition.
Oh, I mean, well, funny that you would say dip your toes in the water here, since these are sometimes also called toe biters. So this is a giant water bug. So probably some kind of a Lethoceros species. It's a true bug in the order Hemiptera. So that's like the stink bugs that are in the game as well. They go through, remember we mentioned all the things here that go through complete metamorphosis. This is one of those ones that goes through incomplete metamorphosis. It starts off as kind of a little version of this bug and just grows bigger and bigger and eventually has full wings and reproductive parts and it's an adult. And I love aquatic insects, aquatic entomology. It's kind of what I started loving entomology was with aquatic entomology. I didn't really get into entomology until I was in college. So not everyone has to be a lifelong entomologist. And it was while I was a research assistant, we were out in the field and I was supposed to be paying attention to fish. And instead I loved all the insects around me. And these were one of my favorite things to, end up catching in a net. They're big. They are awesome predators. They can catch, they catch tadpoles, minnows, even bigger fish than that. They have a paralyzing venom in their rostrum or their beak that they have that they stick into what they're going to eat and suck out the insides. And you can see, and I love this in the museum because they have this giant water bug position just so perfectly. I mean, it's the natural position that this insect would sit in the wild. You can see down below its front legs are kind of outstretched, ready to help grab onto its prey and stick that beak in. Its back legs are holding onto, in this case, a piece of wood, would usually be plant material of some kind, and its butt is sticking up out of the water because giant water bugs continue to breathe atmospheric oxygen. So they have to take in air from outside the water to keep breathing. And they have these two little straps on that back of their abdomen that are basically like a snorkel. And they keep those up above the water. And that's how they take in air to keep breathing. So they can go down and catch and eat stuff, and they got to get back up to stick those snorkels back up to get its butt back up out of the water to get those snorkels out. And so it's, just the representation of this, a specific species. They didn't just call it bug. It's a giant water bug, which I love. And just it's represented so perfectly here that I think, seeing this in the museum makes me think of how much I appreciate seeing things in the natural environment and going outside and having those nature loving moments, that biophilia, that connection to nature. And it's a video game that you're playing indoors that reminds you of how much you love the outside world and how much you want to be a part of it and explore it. So it's something I just absolutely love in this game. It's probably my favorite moment was coming in and seeing this shown like this.
That's
Wow.
awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't think a butt snorkel would be so inspiring, but here I am. I'm inspired to go look for the other butt snorkelers in the world.
Yeah, we've got that. The butt snorkel reminds us of we have some. Oh, and we've hit that 2-hour mark there. Where
I restarted it, and so it should hopefully
Nice.
keep on going now. I learned the trick.
Perfect. But yeah, the butt snorkel. We have some diving water beetles over at the aquarium that dive down with that bubble on them. So basically, scuba diving, taking in their little air bubble down with them to be able to keep breathing. So we've got a few people that are familiar with the butt snorkels. I did want to point out that sea cucumbers actually do breathe through their rear end. That's where their respiratory trees are, is at the tail end. So they have a mouth and they have a butt, and they don't breathe through their mouth. Everybody for sea cucumbers there. So butt snorkels, not uncommon out there, and amazing adaptation there that this big water beetle has. Lots of people very excited about all of your facts there about the bugs there, Ryan.
And just another shout out to butt breathing. Dragonflies, when they're nymphs and they live entirely in the water, they have their gills are internal in their abdomen, and they expand and contract their abdomen to bring water in and out, to flow it over their gills to get oxygen out of the water. And they can do that really rapidly to act like a little jet, like kind of like, like what cephalopods do, to jet themselves out of the way if something is attacking them.
Absolutely. And Team Water Quality just came back in saying, shout out to the sunburst diving beetles at the aquarium.
Yeah.
One of the critters the Water Lab gives extra attention to because of their freshwater habitats there.
Sorry, I ran off there to go look at the dragonfly while we were talking about dragonflies.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I can't wait for the summer in Northern Hemisphere. There's a lot more dragonflies in this game that'll be out.
Boy.
Wow.
Really?
Yeah. And a lot of beetles. So many beetles. Mostly scarabs and stag beetles, but lots of beetles.
Yeah,
Are there
I heard
any
that
dung beetles?
There are. There are a couple dung beetles. One of them I think is out in the winter. Rolling snowballs, according to what I've seen.
Oh my gosh, yes.
I don't really get that, but it's cute.
I actually I brought a present with me for you, Ryan, but I can't drop it inside the museum, so we'll have to drop it outside. But it's a brand new DIY that I just got that I think that you're going to be a fan of.
Oh, teasing.
A teaser.
Oh.
Should we head out there?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Heading out.
Going on an adventure.
Yeah. Well, that was, my mind has been blown
I know.
numerous times over by that absolute wealth of knowledge. Let's just walk right past Blathers and not tell him what we were up to.
Yeah, he doesn't care.
How long were you in that wing? Oh, no, not that long.
You gonna go see the other way? No, that's just the bugs. Oh, okay. All right. Let's see here. Gotta find it. There it is. All right, Ryan. That is a thank you present for.
Oh my gosh!
talking.
Wait, that's for me?
That is for you. Yeah.
Golden dung beetle.
you.
It's a golden dung
I-
beetle
oh.
DIY.
You don't know what you've done. That's gonna be all over my island now.
Yes.
It is the only thing that I want to use my gold nuggets for now.
My botanical garden is just gonna become. It's gonna start to look like a shrine to beetles.
Would you say you're pretty dung ho over the?
Yeah.
Did it?
That one was good.
Okay, thank you. Finally, 2 hours later, found one.
All right.
Amazing.
Wow. Well, this has been quite the delight, everyone. Thank you so much. First of all, Emily Graslie, what a beautiful island you have here in
Oh my
Kittyville.
gosh.
I mean, can we get some W's in the chat for
so
Kittyville,
wonderful.
everybody?
Oh,
Amazing.
thank
It is
you.
a-
so
Thank
much.
you.
It is truly a pollinator
justified.
paradise. Look at this.
All of the hours I've spent on this game. Please don't ask me how many. But thank you for coming to visit. This was fun.
This was so delightful.
This was so much fun. And Ryan, thank you so much for all of your bug information, all of your bug facts. Can we get some M's for millipedes in the chat there for Ryan,
yes,
entomologist extraordinaire, helping us learn so much about the wonderful world of bugs and critters. Oh, look at all those millipedes.
Look at all those. Thank you. I mean, thank you for having me on. This was so much fun. And thank you to everybody in the chat who is here. I hope any questions that weren't answered, I hope you jump on Twitter and find entomologists and keep asking questions, because we want to get people to love insects and other arthropods. So keep it up.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yay.
Emily Simpson.
Yes.
How are you feeling?
I'm so overjoyed right now. Mostly because I am a big fan of lifelong learning, and I just spent the last 2 hours learning so much about bugs, so many things that I didn't know before, and so I am stoked on science right now, Patrick. I don't know about you, man.
Oh man, I'm about to take a nap just so that I can get all of this information into the long-term memory banks there as quickly as possible. This was so wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Emily and Ryan, you are, of course, always welcome back anytime you want to talk more about pollinators and fossils and bugs and millipedes and butt snorkels and you name it.
Yes.
All I want to talk about. Only talk to me about butt snorkels from now on.
Butt snorkels and worm charming. That's gonna be our new channel.
Yeah.
And we have to save up our gnarly stories for the bench of cursed knowledge.
Yeah, no.
It's so wonderful.
Oh, and it looks like the chat really wants to know that it was my cat. She screams when she wants food.
Oh, okay.
She hasn't gotten dinner yet, so she just screams because she knows it's time for dinner.
Well,
and I can't help it. There's nothing I can do about her.
If you're on again, I'll have to make a little avatar for her, just like we had for Trooper, who barked during the stream. So I had her little avatar pop up as well. Yes, we're big fans of the animal companions here on our Animal Crossing stream. So, all right. Well, this has been so wonderful. For those of you in the Twitch chat right now following along, who might be new to the channel, we do Animal Crossing streams every Monday afternoon and Wednesday afternoon. We'll always tweet out what time they are going to be at. So you can check out our Twitter at Monterey AQ to find out when those streams are going to be happening. We'll be streaming again this Wednesday at 3 o'clock and the next Monday probably around 1 or 2. We have to nail down the time for next Monday's stream as well, but we'll be streaming then. Patrick, any last words that you want to say before we end the stream tonight?
Nothing except thank you to everyone for tuning in here, spending some time here with us, even through just this very difficult time for everyone. We hope that you and your friends and family are staying safe and healthy. And we thank you so much for spending time with just science and learning and knowledge this whole time. And as Emily says, it's good to remember to stay kind to yourself and to others in this challenging time.
Yeah.
You're all doing great, and we thank you so much for being there with us. And we hope to see you all again soon and learn more about our amazing world. Even though we can't see each other in person, it's great to be able to see you all virtually here in this time. So yeah, I mean that's it,
Yeah.
Emily. You always finish us off so strong. I hope I
You did a great job.
All right. Oh, thank you.
All right.
Great.
Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Emily. Thanks, Ryan. And we will see you all again soon. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.